Hi, everybody. Let's make sure I'm on. Looks like it now. Okay. Just waiting for it to load up. So, we have some breaking news while we're waiting. Hugo Hernandez Luna, alias El Mulato, has been taken out. He was in January. So, he was kidnapped January of 2026. And now, today, it has been confirmed that his remains have been found, and it was absolutely brutal. He is the leader of. People are laughing about that. I'm not laughing about that at all. He is the top leader for La Linea, who's the chief organizer of hitmen, or he's one of the hitmen generators for La Linea, which is the armed wing for the Juarez cartel. Juarez cartel, we know, have made an alliance and a deal with the El Paso Mormon-Faction cartel. Philanthropists. They try to rebrand themselves as philanthropists. Made a deal in order to live in the United States, get visas and have access to our intelligence databases, being it FBI or others, police, judicial, the prosecutors, and to not have to abide by the laws like the rest of us have to. They get some privileged overlooks with taxes, the IRS, and also with, like, let's say you want to open up a restaurant and you have to have a liquor license. Don't worry, no one's going to check. Just a lot of those kinds of deals we have seen as part of the alliance of the Mexican cartels with this El Paso Mormon faction. I would call it transnational criminal organization. I think that is better description of who they are. So let's start. That is really breaking news. And I see now that I'm on and I can see comments, and I know I'm very late. It's getting to 2 o'clock 1:30 in the morning, but it just can't be helped because there's so much breaking news and things that we're looking into. And of course, um, eh, making sure that what we're seeing, what we're given, can be confirmed. One of the interesting um, tips that we received comes from uh, a um, Baron Coleman uh, podcast, which puts together Charlie Kirk's investigation with our son's investigation very closely with this Mormon faction and the military contracts, the military intelligence community, that kind of similarities in both that is so striking. And we have been saying all along that Charlie Kirk, day one, I'm telling you, I remember exactly where I was. I was sitting in my daughter's van. We had taken the children out for the day. I got back into the van. I didn't even want to look at my phone. the beginning of the day. When I did get back in the van, I looked at the phone and I saw Charlie Kirk. I saw Charlie Kirk lose his life. And I was like, is this AI? Is this AI? I mean, I was so shocked. But I had a really eerie feeling. And of course, we had to confirm it, and it was confirmed that he lost his life. And that evening and the investigation, um, really quick, I said, okay, this is the same Mormon faction. This is the same Mormon faction that did this because they are impersonators, they are infiltrators, they are a transnational criminal organization, and they are the ones that really committed mutiny, and the worst type of crimes in Fort Bliss, infiltrating our military and engaging in the orchestration of the Walmart mass shooting tied to that. Um, and of course, all of the trafficking on Fort Bliss and through Fort Bliss, including 500,000 children through Fort Bliss, uh, as unaccompanied minors. Like, where are their parents? This is a person said, "No way, I don't believe this." Because where are the parents and where are their family, and how can they just be trafficked through Fort Bliss? And that's a good question, because they were being brought up from, this is a transnational group, and we want to know where all these children went. And I know that some have been located. Um, we've had congressional hearings on this in the United States, where they, at that point, they were saying 325,000 children were trafficked, and that they were being dropped off at, this is Kennedy Jr., right? Being dropped off at strip clubs with empty lots beside it, with shipping containers, um, 40 at a time, children. And, I wanted to go and throw up when I was listening to this. Um, this is quite a while ago. At the testimony, because I knew exactly that place, and it was, uh, a place just like Dreams Cabaret, where Leilani Hart, who has confessed to facilitating the worst type of crimes against children, and her family engaging in the worst type of crimes against children and each other, and having films of the child torture, and that in an affidavit. And here she was getting her mail at Dreams Cabaret, a strip joint next to an empty lot with um, storage units, shipping containers. And her husband at the time, um, was also with her, registering their vehicles there at Dreams Cabaret, owned by a Fong Mahia family. And there, it's, it, it's really, all the connections are being made because of the recent arrest of Cesar Duarte, whose wife is a Fong. Um, And, it's hard to believe that they could get away with doing this on our military base, but they have infiltrated. They've infiltrated Fort Huachuca. They've infiltrated Fort Bliss and other military bases, and our intelligence community, our CIA, our FBI, and law enforcement and the judicial. And, this all needs to be, because it is a Mormon faction. You don't, want to put all of them, sorry, in one box, right? Um, and so you have to be very, very careful how you're doing this. And I think President Trump is a master, a master of exposing those that are engaged in the evil and preserving, being very patient, right? Being very patient and preserving those that are uh, not involved in the criminal, transnational criminal um, organization. And so, you know, so we're going to hold off on um, with the Charlie Kirk's case. Well, it's all coming out, right? It's all coming out. And so, um, and what is clear is this Mormon faction, this common denominator of intelligence community um, wrapped up in this Mormon faction. And of course, in our son's case, not only the intelligence community like Connell Wenton, right? Uh, and of course, CID agent Tavita Nusa, who has since had his badge revoked, um, but also in the funeral home and mortuary operations, like Solomon Nusa in that, and Amber Chase. They're in this group. And of course, Belen Rocha. And of course, at Santa Teresa Jetport with the pilots, with the planes and the pilots. And I haven't said this a lot, much, but Dallas Hart was training to be a pilot. He was taking lessons there with Deborah Sarah West. And, you know, we know that just um, all needs to be investigated. All needs to be investigated because he was already doing solo flights. And that's very dangerous when you can be trafficking as a pilot. Very dangerous, right? What's that movie? The American, oh, is it? Mm, oh, it's with Tom Cruise, right? It's with Tom Cruise. So, yeah. So this is where the Charlie Kirk really at the very beginning, I'm like, they're connected. And they are. What happened to Charlie Kirk, what happened to Richard, what happened to Julio Cordero, what happened to the Walmart mass shooting. It's all connected. And, to give an example of um, for the Julio Cordero, the Walmart case, and our son's case, what is another common denominator is that they have not released the video footage, the video footage for Julio Cordero's killing, the video footage, the full video footage for the Walmart. There were so many cameras in there, and the video footage on Fort Bliss, um, the day that our son's life was taken. We know through Director of Emergency Services Thomas Kane that those videos were tampered with. We know that with the Walmart mass shooting, that Michael Mayella, the defendant's brother-in-law, really family, was working at Walmart cybersecurity, also within the DA's office and the FBI office. We know that Julio Cordero's, um, being at Franklin High School, there should be lots of videos, and the video has not been released. And so, that you can tell that it's the same MO. And that's just one example. There's so many examples that it's not even confusing anymore to you. You see that this is the same group, and thank God it is. It is the same group that's causing all the trouble. So we need to really zoom in on this group, get all the evidence and hold them accountable, and we'll have a much more peaceful, freer life, because this group is up to no good. And so the other thing that, there seems to be this real concentration, and I haven't posted about it, on Cesar Chavez, the farm. Sorry, it's getting late, y'all. The farm workers boss, right? That was so revered, he was so revered. And in all the school books and everything, well, Governor Abbott ordered his name to be stricken out of all the books, like he's not part of history anymore. I mean, you can amend, right, and say, look, accusations have come out now that he messed with children, right? The worst type of crimes with children. So, but I don't understand why, when they are always protecting the uh, criminals that do the worst type of things against children and women, like Soroldi, right? They protected him. They protected Jeffrey Epstein. There, they wanted to rebrand him as a um, oh, what do you call it? Oh, geez, it's so late at night. It'll come to me. As a philanthropist, right? As a philanthropist, they wanted to rebrand him as a philanthropist. So yeah, it's why they're so willing to do that, to cover for so many of these predators. But all of a sudden, there's these accusations out against Cesar Chavez, and they are just like trying to erase him, trying to totally erase him. Um, it is odd, isn't it? It is odd. I really would like to get to the bottom of that and figure out why Veronica Escobar is so afraid of Cesar Chavez now, right? The memory of Cesar Chavez, when Biden, who she was holding the purse for, had his bust right there in the Oval Office, right? What is going on here? Uh, you know, I don't know. It's just really very, very odd. And to have Governor Greg Abbott, like, we've got to erase his name from everything. Oh, really? Okay. That's just really mm, very odd. Very odd and very extreme. Very extreme. Yeah. I mean, we've got uh what is a children's author that is known to be a predator, and we still, I think it's the author of Gulliver's Travels. Who's that? The author of Gulliver's Travels. Um, and we still have those books, and he was a total predator, a total predator. Uh, anyway, it's just really seems strange. Something else is going on. Okay, so also, because I was born there at White Sands Missile Range, and because my mother, being an American citizen since 1965, um, but having German heritage, being born and raised in Germany, and became an American citizen right there in El Paso. And my dad meeting with Werner von Braun, right? Working there at White Sands Missile Range. My father's, that my grandparents, they're all German, right? Even though they're American citizens, um, all still spoke German. Um, so this is in no way, um, this is kind of like the enemy, and I don't even know if I'm allowed to say it on a live stream. The enemy during World War II in Germany to the Germans. Okay, and I know this because of living in Germany for so long, all of my connections in Germany, my grandmother living through it, through World War I and World War II. Um, and my parents being there, right at the epicenter of Operation Paperclip, uh, being part of the German American Club, knowing and working with these German, um, uh, my dad, not so much. He was always, he's a missile repairman, and he was enlisted. But he did have contact with them in the German American Club. He knew, and my mom knew they were all officers. They were all scientists, absolutely part of the drone program, even back then, missile program. Um, uh, do I want to say space program? Whatever, whatever in that. Um, I guess, but mainly this drone, right? This lifting off, this, uh, you know, kind of like a saucer, a spaceship, that kind of levitation, the levitation of a device, right? And these missiles. So, and what they could deliver, how far they could fly, what they could deliver. Um, that kind of the tunnels that are there in El Paso. I knew about that. So with all of this and um, researching Richard's case, it's like, oh my gosh, this is like the same playbook as so many Germans um, relayed relayed to me personally. That was the worst time in Germany, right? The worst time in Germany during the upcoming World War II and World War II. And how it all happened, because and I'll tell you why it's the same playbook. Impersonation, to impersonate that they are there to help you, that they are there to do good for you, that they are there to you know uh, to be something that they're not. Okay, and to such a point that they compromise your loyalty, and then they can do their evil deeds. It was all about impersonation, and all about um, doing the things that Jeffrey Epstein was doing in the modern time, trying to find the magic of everlasting life or whatever. And it was a very ungodly time, and very perverse time. A lot of perverts. Um, and so, it just was so, because I could go on and talk more about it. But what I'm trying to say is this Mormon faction funeral, flesh peddling, human flesh eating, child traffickers, all of this terrible stuff that you can read in Leilani Hart's affidavit about her own family. And I can't tell you how many other stories I've been reading about this same group because of what was happening over in Chihuahua and the colonies and everything. Um, I mean, dead bodies in the backyard, uh, terrible. I mean, absolutely atrocious things. And this 400 bodies at Plenitude Crematorium in rat infested, filthy conditions, the same playbook as the worst time in Germany during World War II. It's the same. It's so terrible. There's no there's no respect for the body, for humans. Um, and look at what they did to Richard with the organ harvesting, with La Diablo, with the babies, with the black market. Um, it's the same spirit. And so uh, President Trump has been mentioning the paperclip lately. And I don't know if you picked up on that, but he's like, oh, whoever invented the paperclip, it's just so simple and it's so beautiful. And, you know, how he does, how he explains. And I'm like, I think he's giving us a hint. He's giving us a hint about Operation Paperclip. And I'm going to look that up. And so that's what I did. And it is really shocking because it connected to Egypt. Because Operation Paperclip and Operation FF happened at the same time. And it involved the leftovers of that terrible group in Germany. And which, I'm very proud to say that, my grandfather, who died in World War II as a German soldier, died as a German soldier, not with the two snakes, not with that. No, no, not with the terrible group. He was not with the terrible group. And my other grandfather, he immigrated to the United States because he refused to join the party in Germany, and the United States brought him in, and he did not go back to Germany until like he was in his 80s. He came to visit us. Um, so he left because he did not want to join the party. And I'm very proud of that, um, of my family in that respect, because these impersonators are so good and they draw you in. They draw you in. They'll say, you just join the party, you'll get a good job and you'll get benefits and you'll get privileges and, all of this stuff. And so they really draw you in. And then all of a sudden you're stuck and they're doing the evil things and you're like, oh my gosh, I've joined the party. I've taken the mark, right? So, looking at the history of these, where they brought these scientists, where they brought um, the commando, that they took the commando to Egypt to train the Egyptians to really reform Egypt. I mean, to absolutely, yeah, to change Egypt forever. And it makes you understand Egypt. And when you look at and I'll put this up here too. When you look at the map, see where Egypt is right here? It's so important. It's so important because of the Suez Canal. it's just really important. And then you see where Jeffrey Epstein's, and am I allowed to say that? JE's island is. It's right there in the crossover of the Circle 8, right? Of course, it goes out here in the Pacific and comes to China too, and I haven't gotten to that part yet. The Islanders, because Leilani Hart is the Hula Islander, right? The Islander connection, the Samoa connection, yeah. So, but Hawaii, right? Hawaii and all that. But just to look on this pipeline that comes across the Panama Canal down into Peru. This Peru and Ecuador, Colombia area, that's the epicenter for the cocaine, right? That's the epicenter, and it gets on these ships here, and they bring it and they traffic it right to Zorro Ranch, right? I mean, or into the United States, but Zorro Ranch is right there. I mean, he had like prime location for this trafficking pipeline. And of course, Egypt is in this pipeline, and they brought in the Germans there. Not the Germans, the worst type of people that were in Germany during World War II. Of course, they are German heritage, but they were possessed with something, possessed with evil, and they were brought to Egypt. A big leader there, and trained uh, the Egyptians, and even to extend to Yasser Arafat, right? And gave them weapons that were not too great, but had a huge Palestinian presence and connection. Egypt has that. Of course, Kuwait is right there, and I've labeled it because Kuwait is where Nadal Baim was going to school when he was growing up, and he has a Palestinian connection. He has a connection to this here, and of course that's his son-in-law right there, Bradford Bugado, in the G3 operations at Fort Bliss. Huge position, huge, and of course there's Richard in his chain of command, but he was bigger than even Richard's chain of command. I can't even tell you what a very important position they gave this beast, this monster. And of course, you can just see how important it is to understand this and to understand the history, because the Germans were there, and I kept seeing, the German names, the German names within this investigation. And I knew, okay, that area is very heavily uh, influenced by the Germans that came over. And, you know, so um, was there a Mormon presence? And I can tell you that after World War II, um, absolutely witness testimony that they were all over Germany. Okay. All over Germany. So it's not like it couldn't happen with a Mormon faction. Um, Bad influence, right? Bad influence. So, yeah, they've just gotten away from God and the city of God. They've gotten away from that, and it's just not a nice place to be. It's a very perverse place to be, away from God, and the worst type of crimes happen. And it has absolutely connected, is part of, or is responsible for this trafficking pipeline. It can be fuel, it can be children, it can be weapons. I mean it, you name it. And of course, the all the money laundering that entails, and then of course all the injustices that the infiltration and the injustices in our justice system, um in our law enforcement, in our prosecutor's office, the injustices in the business world, that some small businesses get privileged because they're part of a cartel, and then the regular people that work real hard have to um, pay enormous taxes because of fraud with the bonds and fraud with the contracts and the military. And yeah, it's just the amount of dominoes in this is huge because of one small, very evil group, and we call them the El Paso Mormon-Faction Cartel, but I should call them the Transnational Criminal Organization. So, thank you, Laura, for coming on so late and translating to Spanish. Thank you, Anicia, for coming on so late with your prayers and your love. And Danielle, great to see you with your prayers and your love, because everything is coming together and people are really seeing that everything is coming together. I did post again about Joe Kent, and I absolutely, maybe I didn't know um, how much of a political sensitive uh, topic that was about Joe Kent, because, now doing this, I see things pretty much in black and white. And so I wanted to be more careful because people don't always see everything in black and white. They don't know all of this information that we have gotten, and or what we've been through. Probably it's a personal matter because of everything that we've been through. Um, but what Joe Kent did, just the letter that he put out, we felt was not appropriate at all. Not appropriate. Not when we have our military engaged in this conflict. And he should have been much more careful about how he resigned. The other thing is that he was being investigated for leaking and allegedly leaking, right? Well, okay, then he needs to quietly go. Maybe he wasn't right for the job, um, but to find out that he was the one that vetted Mitch Snow, and we personally confirmed that it was Joe Kent that vetted Mitch Snow. And to us, for Joe Kent to vet Mitch Snow as a personal favor for Candace, and even though we have appreciated so much the work that Candace has been doing in the investigation, in this case, it was wrong. What she did was wrong. Um, but it wasn't as wrong as what Joe Kent did. Just because she's friends with Joe Kent does not mean, I mean, she can try, right? But he absolutely should have said, no, Candace, I cannot do that. I am the director of the Counterterrorism Center, the National Counterterrorism Center. What I do is very, very sensitive. I can't just vet someone as a favor. No, that's leaking because Mitch Snow has a file. He's past SF. And to just give the okay is leaking, especially when all of that is under investigation. And I'm going to tell you, our son's case is connected to Fort Huachuca because of the asymmetric warfare group that targeted us as our CAO. So all of that is sensitive information that's behind that. For now, I'm in a different position because I'm a Gold Star mother getting on here for transparency to drive them to do their job, right? To do their damn job, right? Which they don't like to do. And for Joe Kent to out and outright not do his job is leaking. It was leaking. And I'm really sorry about that because I'm sure he might have really good intentions but he knows better. He's SF. He knows better. Don't tell me he doesn't know. My husband knew right away. Oh my gosh, if I would have written that kind of resignation letter, I would have been arrested. It wasn't right, y'all. Whether you're on his side or not, and I'm sure you're on his side, we're all on his side. We're all on Candace's side. I'm not in a total agreement with her that the way she's pursuing Israel, 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 because there's so many impersonators, there's so many infiltrators that we need to be careful, right? Who is infiltrating? Who is impersonating? Who are the mutineers? Who are the mutineers? Um, and so, to just have that kind of narrative, I think is pretty dangerous. Um, Even though we have identified the common denominator in our son's case and those that tried to take President Trump's life, and also those that took um, Charlie Kirk's life, there's a common denominator, and that is a Mormon faction. And uh, that is absolutely hard evidence proof. Okay. So, and you can say, okay, there's these players and these players, but um, we need to figure out, um, well, I'm trying to figure out, we're trying to figure out in our family. And, we absolutely understand that there's so much at stake because there's so much trafficking and impersonation and the destruction of our judicial system, the weaponization of our judicial system. And so, we appreciate your patience, but for that point, I am sticking to my guns because we confirmed it that Joe Kent did something that he shouldn't have done. And he needed to resign, and he needed to resign in a much better way than what he did. And I don't know if he's trying to preserve some part of this trafficking network because it's so much money, y'all. It's so much money. You know, this illegal activity, it's so much money. And so it is really, um, it's really going to be, well, it's going to affect us all. It's going to affect us all because it created an economy, a very dirty economy. And so it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be tough to know who's who and all of that. And um, yeah, so so that's what I have to say with that. And I just thank everyone for your support and sharing this information, sharing our research, our posts, and contributing. There's huge messages that happened today too that I haven't even got to yet, as far as discussing them, that are huge leads. So, thank you so much for all of that and all the corrections where they're necessary and all the sharing that is absolutely 100% necessary. So thank you so much. God bless you. And I will be back tomorrow, God willing.